Great. Okay, well, this week, everybody, we only have class today and Friday, and the topic, so in the book you have, it's called Chapter 9A, and it's specifically a chapter about professionalism and employability. So as my little icebreaker, I put some professionalism stuff up on the board, which Jared can't see, but so it's actually in pretty small print anyway. 96% of HR executives, managers believe that professionalism relates to the person, not the job title. 92% of HR executives and managers believe that colleges and universities should develop professionalism in students regardless of their field of study. 51% believe that a sense of entitlement has increased among employees. 96% of HR executives report that job applicants' professionalism affects the likelihood of being hired. Top characteristics of today's professionals: 34% interpersonal skills, 21% time management, 25% appearance, 25% communication skills, 9% knowledge, and 27% work ethics. Deadly interview mistakes: 40% inappropriate attire, 29% late for interview, 26% lack of preparation, 23% poor verbal skills and grammar. And there's all kinds of different things that come into this discussion about professionalism that we're going to talk about today. Matter of fact, no, not that. Yeah, professionalism, skills, and attitudes. So before we get into talking about this, how would you define professionalism when it comes to the workplace? How would you define professionalism?
Presenting yourself in a way that's consistent with the job.
That's a pretty fair definition. So if someone, so I have some friends up in the booming metropolis of Pocahontas, Iowa, and they own an agricultural drainage business. So what would the difference in their professionalism be from maybe someone from Dr. Mandy Pedig over here that runs Ankeny Vision Center? What would be the difference in their professionalism?
Appearance.
Appearance would be one big one, right? So Dr. Mandy, she's going to dress like a eye doctor, whereas Jake and Jeff Luft up in Pocahontas, they're going to dress like they're going to be out in the field. What else would be different in their professionalism? Jared, you can chime in anytime. What would you expect to be different?
Language.
In what way?
The types of words that they use and maybe even the meaning behind those words. So I guess jargon would be a more
Yeah. So jargon and the terminology and maybe even just the level of communication. You know, you have a eye doctor's going to be technical in their professional communication, whereas agricultural guys might be kind of general unless you're specifically talking about something agricultural. What else might be different? If I had Jake and Jeff Luft from Luft & Sons Agricultural Drainage come in at the beginning of class, and then I had Dr. Mandy Pedig come in at the end of class, what might be any other differences besides language and dress and appearance?
Is the skill set is different. So like the ideas and like way that they present themselves is going to be different because it's a different type of environment.
Yeah. And so our expectations are already different, right? So I picked kind of two different type of jobs. And so we're already expecting that anyone with doctor being in their name's going to have a certain amount of knowledge. They're going to have a certain number of skills that help them get through medical school. It may be guys that run an agricultural drainage business. They didn't have to necessarily have it. They have other skill sets, you know, but when it comes to the talk about professionalism, it might be two totally different sets of skills. So what would they have in common then? What would be some of the professionalism that you would say, it doesn't matter if you're running an agricultural company or a vision center, what would be some of the professionalism that they would need to have in common?
Being on time.
Timeliness, absolutely.
The basic knowledge of like business like overall business knowledge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like business 101. They both need to make a profit. You know, they make their profit different ways, but they both need to make a profit. So they need that kind of understanding. What else?
How to market businesses.
Absolutely. So a knowledge of marketing for sure. What else would they have in common?
Commitment to the product or service they're selling.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be some kind of passion about what they do, kind of understanding why they do what they do, stuff like that. What else? Kaylin, Rebecca, what do you guys think?
I was actually going to say this, but everyone said like very different things. So I'm maybe
No.
But respect for the customer, I would expect like professionalism and respect when you're dealing with
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, all your customers have certain things in common. They want to be treated with respect. They want to have people show up when they say they're going to show up. They want to know that there's integrity with the way things are billed and things like that. So yeah, excellent. What about you, Kaylin? What would they have in common? What would you expect? Your expectations. Let's say that you owned a farm, but you also need eyeglasses. And so you're going to meet with these agricultural guys in the morning to do a big job. And then that afternoon, you're going to be going and buying a pair of eyeglasses and getting your vision checked. What would you expect to be the same no matter what kind of business it is?
The only thing I'm coming up with
What would be, how about this? Let me ask it a different way. What would be a real deal killer to you if either one of those people did it while you're meeting with them? You know, something that they either did or something you learned about them or you read their Google reviews and you saw something would be a real deal killer, whether they're eye doctor or agricultural business.
I don't know if this is like exactly what I was specify. Like sloppiness in what they're doing. So like I know sometimes things with the agricultural thing, like sometimes when you're in a field that's like not, you know, where you have to be in like a white coat or something like a doctor, like it's just not, sometimes they just don't present themselves quite as well. Like I've been in places and like their office can be like super crazy messy and they bring customers like right in. So stuff like that maybe. Like not sloppiness in that way.
Sure, absolutely. Because and really your expectation goes along, you're looking at from the customer's point of view in that respect. So agricultural guys come in to present what they would like to do for your farm, and it's going to cost you $100,000. You would hope that they would come in, even if they're working in the field later, that they would come in neat, presentable, you know, they're not going to track mud into your kitchen, whatever. And then you go to the eye doctor, you have the same expectation that they, you know, aren't dressed, they didn't just get back from a run, you know, they're actually in professional attire, they're going to treat you in a professional way. So professionalism, any other comments on this before we move on?
Well, probably you might not have to deal with this in the situations that you provided where somebody was coming to you, but if you're going to somebody, there's a lot of times there seems to be an air of disrespect or an air of uncare. So like bedside manners when it comes to a doctor's office or something like that. When you see bad reviews, a lot of the times it's like the doctor didn't seem to honestly care about what he was doing. I just seemed like another job. And so that's something that I was thinking about when you talked about the Google reviews. If somebody said that the people at this organization didn't seem to care about their customers, then that would be one of the biggest, quickest turnaways for me.
Yeah, and it's interesting how Google reviews, Yelp, TripAdvisor, depending on what you're looking for, are like a great equalizer. Amazon reviews. So before you buy something, before you hire someone, you can actually look at how have they done. And then a lot of times you're judging them based on their professionalism. And it depends if it's not a product, if it's a service or a person, you know, you're judging them based on professionalism. Yeah.
It's kind of a question, but can we define like the difference between professionalism and profession.
Sure, as best I can. And then if I get to the PowerPoint slides, it might help with that a little bit. But so a professional is just someone that does something for a living. So an amateur is someone that does something for a hobby, or they do it, but they don't get paid. So, you know, an amateur athlete is someone that plays for a team. They might even play for a very high level team, but they don't get any money for it. They just do it. They pay them. They pay for everything. Professional is someone that actually gets hired to do a job. There's usually some kind of job description. There's standards that you have to abide by. So that's a professional. So professional person. And then professionalism is just that set of skills and attitudes that identify someone as a professional, that they're kind of like generally accepted practices. Certain industries have GAP things, generally accepted practices. Accounting has that. They have the GAP manual. It's like a Bible for exactly how every accounting process should be done. Well, there's in most industries, there are unwritten professionalism standards, right? So in medical practice, a doctor would never walk in with dirty fingernails. You know, it's probably not written anywhere, but you know that that would definitely be something that's just inappropriate in that professional environment. But if someone is working in, you know, they work in a factory, that might not be a big professional issue in that setting. So professionalism is in the context of the profession, I think. So, and then there are some things that are kind of universal and some things that probably are a little more specific. So that's what I want to talk about next. And Jared, what I have written on the board is the word professionalism, and underneath I have two columns. One says skills, one says attitudes. I'm gonna have everyone submit, like come up and write in either one column or another, and then explain what they mean by it. So everyone in here, you can think of a skill that you could say that is a good skill. If someone is saying, boy, that person really has a professional, I can just tell they just have good professionalism. Well, what's maybe one of the skills that you would have that would help you in professionalism, or what's one of the attitudes you would have? And if it's identified like as something that goes with certain kind of job, then you can explain that when you write it down. So anyone, here, I'll get your marker ready for you.
The first thing that comes to my mind is speaking. Like how well, like whatever job you have, you want to have like good people skills, I guess. Is that
People skills?
like people skills speaking, like
Sure.
how to interact?
You know, I'll just write them all down so we don't have to waste a lot of time with everyone walking back and forth. People skills and interaction. Yeah. Great. That's you're on the path that I was hoping. Okay, great. What else? T.
I think of for attitudes, respect, and this sounds weird, but like you have respect towards your own skills, but you also have respect towards your customers in a way, because you don't want to treat them like they don't know anything, and that just makes anybody
Yeah. Excellent. Matter of fact, if you don't have these, it's going to be an issue, right? So if you lack respect, you work at Kohl's, someone comes into your little department and you lack respect for people, it's going to be a problem. They're going to know right away. You know who's really nice at Kohl's? The Amazon return person. Go back.
There's yeah.
There? Oh, okay. I had the same lady twice. She did a really good job. So.
Use an example of this?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not gonna say where I went the other day. I don't wanna like rat anywhere out. But I went to this one place
Church?
that
just-
no. I went to this one place that had like you couldn't like they couldn't serve you if you like didn't have a mask kind of a thing. But it was one of those things where I didn't know that I was gonna be there, so I didn't bring one. So like obviously I couldn't be served or whatever. So which that's fine. And like the people there that like enforce that, they're just doing their jobs. But the person specifically that enforced it to me, you could tell she was just like being very rude about it. Like she was just like, I can't like help you at all because you're not like wearing a mask, like all this kind of like she was just being rude. So like I think with that, like just being able to enforce like your policies without like making the person feel stupid.
Mm,
Like, so, like, respect is a big one, but just being able to enforce, because you do need to have a level of enforcement. Like, you can't just let people come in and do what they want in your business. But, like, I think showing respect in that way is going to make people appreciate you more and, like, want to follow your policies more than if you're just rude about stuff.
well, some people here in Ankeny, there's a couple of different community pages on Facebook that you can join. And some people, when something like that happens, happened at a very popular taco place and someone like got on someone at the counter and made them feel really dumb. You know, not only is that just bad business, but then, you know, the person that felt dumb went straight to the Facebook page and said, this person made me feel dumb at this place, you know, because I didn't have a mask, but she had her mask pulled down below her nose. What's that all about? You know, so it's like people need to have the right attitude, even if they're not perfect at it, obviously, but they need to have the right attitude. What else?
Knowledge about the job or about the product. So like they know how to do their job well.
Yeah. Yeah, if I said I was a professional basketball coach, but I don't know what a layup is, then doesn't matter. I could be the most respectful person. I could be a great communicator, but people are going to know right away, this guy doesn't know anything about basketball. So you do have to have some kind of knowledge. And these are things you can grow in, right? These are things you can start at ground zero and you could work your way up in every one of these. So even if your mama didn't teach you right? You know, as they would say in North Carolina.
That's right.
Sorry, I'm halfway on the screen. There you are. Yeah, great. Okay, what else?
I don't know if this goes under skills or attitudes, but I'd say like proper decorum. So like good behavior and like being able to carry yourself like professionally. I guess that would be a skill.
Yeah,
Like just how to carry yourself.
I like the word decorum because that does. How you carry yourself. So in the military, we have a term called, it's called military bearing, and it has to do with the way you dress, the way you talk. Do you know when to salute and when not to salute? Do you stand at attention when it's time to stand at attention? Do you have good presence of mind in that situation to be the person that they've trained you to be? So decorum has the same connotation. That's good. What else?
Kind of going along with that, and it might be probably more attitudes, I guess, but just like dressing for the job that you want. So like showing up every day. I mean, like looking your best, but also just in the way that you're, obviously what you're wearing, how like what you look like, but also just with your general attitude, just having that kind of like your decorum, just the whole like aura or whatever. Like you just walk in and people can tell that you care about your job and you want to be there and you want to throw in.
Yeah, because you could communicate the exact opposite the way you dress too. Like, I hate this job. I don't care. I'm just here for a paycheck. Put on my second best pair of pajama bottoms and go to work. You know, it's like, that's not, you know, you're not really communicating professionally, right? Okay, all right. What else? Who hasn't gone yet?
I've got one.
All right.
This one's powered by the one that Max mentioned, having knowledge of your job, but critical thinking and creative thinking too. Because if a problem arises in the job, or if somebody asks you a question that you don't really know the answer to, if you have proper knowledge of your job and you know what your employers would have you say, then if you are asked a question that you don't know the answer to, then a lot of the times you can find your way to that answer just by using critical thinking off of the knowledge that you have of your job.
Yeah, very good. And creative. You can come up with creative solutions. Very good. Yep.
Kind of going off of that, I guess would be more of an attitude, but a good work ethic. So if you run into a problem, you're not just going to give up.
You guys learn about Puritan work ethic when you were growing up in like history class and stuff. You know, it's kind of an American thing that,
How the Pilgrims got here.
yeah, well, yeah, sure. So we basically have this positive peer pressure to work hard in America. Not all countries have that, or they have it for different reasons. You know, out of fear, out of the caste system, out of, you know, whatever. But then some cultures just don't have it. They're more sustenance living. So Micronesia, not everyone has the same view of work ethic that we have, you know, here in Iowa, because they don't have to work as hard if you're able to live on very little. You just don't have to work 10 hours a day. But in Iowa, you got to work 10 hours a day if you want to live in Ankeny. So it's work ethic is a big thing, and it's something that can be learned and improved on and stuff like that. Who hasn't gone yet? Abigail.
I think the ability to prioritize is an important skill, whether that's prioritizing people, so not taking a phone call in the middle of interacting with a customer, or prioritizing certain aspects of your job that are more important than others.
Excellent. Yep. Excellent skill. What else? Anyone else not gone? Go.
Just like the ability to, or the willingness to just put yourself out there and like try new things, even if it's awkward or like uncomfortable. Sometimes it's important to just be willing to get out of your comfort zone and do different things for the sake of your job or whatever it might be.
That's hard to do. What else?
Just like a basic knowledge of life skills, like how to count money, how to talk to people, how to answer the phone, how to sweep.
You know, that sounds funny. There are a lot of people who've never touched a broom. They've never touched a mop. They have no idea. They don't ever answer phones. They don't actually use the phone.
Look at a room and not jump.
Yeah, I had to teach an
What
18-year-old how to sweep, and he's like, my
Yeah.
mom just does it all for me. And I was like,
What
well,
did
I'm
you
making
do
you
with
do
the
it now.
room when you?
He just didn't know what to do with it. He's like, what's this for? I'm like,
I've had people like that, except with mopping.
I'm
not
feeling personally attacked here.
You know, it's not too late, Jared. We'll drop a broom off instead of a pillow so you can practice. In basic training, they taught us how to sweep, how to mop, how to shine our shoes, how to iron our clothes, how to make our beds. And the military has a very systematic way of doing each one of those things. But you'd be surprised, like, I already knew how to iron a little bit. Of course, I kind of knew how to make my bed, but I was super lazy about it. Never shined my shoes my whole life. You know, and I came from a private Christian school and upper middle class, you know, family and all these things. There were guys in my unit who had never done any of those things. One thing that I had that helped me, a skill, I guess you could call it a skill, is our school back in the day required you to call everyone yes sir, yes ma'am, all that. So my parents didn't require that. That wasn't their background, but the school did. So I was used to doing that. Yes, ma'am, especially yes, ma'am, because most of our teachers were ladies. Get to basic training. Some of these guys had never said yes, sir, yes, ma'am, their whole life, ever. So life was hard for them at first. If you accidentally call your drill sergeant, yeah, or yep, or something like that, I mean, you would just get hammered. You would be in so much trouble. And some of these guys, they just had a hard time getting it out of their system and learning, you know, the skill. And I think the skill comes off of the attitude of respect, but you do still have to kind of learn the, you know, the language of respect as well. And so, and then once you get it, if you've ever been around former military people, they can't stop saying yes sir, yes ma'am, even if you're not a sir or ma'am to them. They just always talk like that, right? So any other skills or attitudes? Okay, all right. Well, this is a great start. I would put most of this, I I would take a lot of this here and I would add in the word maturity, because as people become more mature in life, if they're going to progress, they're going to realize that these skills and attitudes will help them grow personally, and it'll help them grow professionally. And so if you want to be growing, like if you don't want to just be stuck at level 1, then as you mature, you're going to be smart enough to know, ooh, I need to have a better attitude about this, or oh, I need to learn more about what we do here so that I don't have to always say, let me get a manager for that every time someone asks me a question. You know what? I need to get better at, counting down the drawer at the end of the day, because, I want to move into that position eventually. So I need to learn that. So there are great opportunities to grow, obviously, with all this. So really good. Okay. Let me move on. I'm going to move to the PowerPoints here. Jared, you're not going to be able to see the PowerPoints, buddy. Sorry.
It's all right.
So, but I'll do such an awesome job of explaining it that it's almost like you're here. So, all right. So let's talk about employability and professionalism. What would be, before we go, what would be the number one thing that if it came up, you're the job interviewer and the interviewee, what would be the number one thing that you would be turned off by if someone came into a job interview and they either did or said something that you would definitely not hire a person? What would be like the number one thing to you?
What time do you think we'll be finished?
Yes, that would definitely kill it. It'd be like, how about right now? You just be like, maybe this exact minute we're done with this interview. Yeah. Would be a killer for you guys.
And I've seen some people come in for interviews and they just don't look like they really prepared for it. They don't look like they really care. Like they'll come in like their hair's a mess, like they're wearing flip-flops, like they're chewing gum, and you can just tell they don't really care about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I feel like that would just be an indication right there that you don't necessarily want to hire them.
Yeah. You wonder if they thought they just automatically get the job for showing up. Because there's so much life now that you just get something just for showing up. What else? What would kill it for you guys if someone showed up for a job interview?
They don't actually want the job. Maybe they're being forced to do it, like I'm thinking of a teenager or something. They just need to get a job.
Yep.
They just don't want to do the job, and so that how they're going to do the job.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And let me say, as a person that has hired people that did not want the job, but I kind of, talked them into it or bribed them into it, whatever it takes to get them is what it takes to keep them. So if you have to say, well, I'll make it really convenient for you and I'll do this and I'll do that, you are now becoming the servant to the person that is going to be the hardest person to work with. It's pretty rare that it works out well. Usually end up seeing that relationship, deteriorate pretty quick. So better to go without than to get someone that doesn't want the job. What else?
I would say on the flip side of that, someone who acts like who's not teachable. They already know how to do everything. That just annoys me personally. I don't know if it's
That's super annoying. And especially when you know that they don't know as much as they think they know. Like that they're ignorant of whatever it is. They're, but they believe that they could do your job, that's just messed up. Yep. What else? Any other thoughts?
I would say just disrespect in general. Like if somebody's just not, I was raised to say yes ma'am, yes sir, and respond when especially somebody is asking you a question or something. So if they were just super flippant the whole time, and they could look the part, they could, look really professional, but if they're just gonna be disrespectful,
Yep. And it's tricky. So when you're hiring someone, everything has to be on the table. So when you're in the position of the interviewer, you have to be willing to tell them, you know what, I don't think it's going to work out. And if they say why, you have to actually tell them what about the interview didn't go well. Now, you can look at that as an opportunity to help someone grow, maybe they just need that. Like someone finally had to tell them, you just can't be like that, you know? And so God might have put them in your path so you can actually help them grow. Even if it makes them cry right then, it might be the best thing for them later on. But regardless, even if they don't learn any lessons and they're just so, you know, they're going down a path where they're just going to have a hard life, you still have to be a good steward of the position you're in. So, but what we were talking about with HR laws and stuff, you also have to be super careful that you're honest with what it is that kept them from getting the job. So, okay, well, let's take a look at these. So professionalism is how you conduct yourself at work, your attitudes, actions, behaviors. You have skills and attitudes and behaviors, which you talked about. What is a career? Career is a sequence of work positions held by a person during his or her lifetime. So some people have a very linear career. You know, they get a college degree in English, and then they go and they teach English, and then they go and they, you know, teach a higher level of English, and then maybe eventually they start writing books about teaching English. You know, it's a very linear, like everything's kind of in a straight line. But other people, you know, like me, got out of the high school, worked at a country club, then I worked at Subway, then I joined the Air Force, then I was in electronics, and then I went to Bible college, and I worked in public relations at Bible college. Then I became an air conditioning salesman. Then I became payroll salesman. Then I ran a company. Then I went to Guam in ministry. And so their career is like a big ball of yarn. So career does not have to necessarily be this stair-step path of like, oh, you just get bigger and better and more money and more whatever your whole life. That's kind of the world's way of looking at, especially the American model. That's not necessarily the way God does it. So career can be a complicated thing, but it's really just a collection of all things you've done. Another reason why I like LinkedIn so much, because it helps you kind of look at your whole life career in one, you know, explanatory thing. Boundaryless career, when an individual takes personal responsibility for his or her own career. So my wife's grandfather, Curtis Fuller, got a job at Ford Motor Company in the 1950s. After World War II, they moved to Kansas City. He bounced around between a couple of jobs, took a job in the automotive factory, and he worked there until 1994. So he worked there almost 50 years or 40 years. And then he retired from there. He worked on the assembly line that whole time. Ford Motor Company controlled his career. That was pretty common for industrial people that did industrial work. The company told you what you were going to do. You know, certain communities in America, the company did everything. So like if you worked in West Virginia, coal mining's big, it's like one of the number one industries in West Virginia. Well, the coal mine owned the grocery store, the housing, the medical clinic, the school, and you worked for the coal mine, and then they took care of making sure your kids were healthy and educated and that you had a place to live. So there's an old, like an old song, you know, you load 16 tons and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. Don't call me St. Peter because I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. You know, because a lot of coal mines, what they would do is you basically are so enslaved, you could never leave, but they did take good care of you. So, and mining is actually a very good paying job now, yeah, if you can get it. So, your career though, a boundaryless career is just the idea of you don't have to do the same thing your whole life. I try and tell people this all the time. What you do in your 20s might not be anything like what you end up doing in your 30s. I had no idea I'd be doing this. I would have totally laughed you out of the room if you would have told me I'd be working in a college, let alone teaching in a college. That really was not anywhere in my vision of what I thought I would be or do. So you really just have to kind of be open to God's leading in it. And some people, in some cultures, this is really hard, right? So if you were groomed your whole life, your parents were doctors, they tell you you're going to be a medical doctor, they put you through all the finest schools, SAT prep, all these AP courses, then you go off to a Ivy League school on full scholarship and you're 4.0 and you go to med school and all this. It's like, if you don't become a medical doctor, you have just offended your whole family, you know. But you know, so many people don't follow through with it. I mean, I know multiple kids, multiple young adults now that were on that path and they got somewhere in the middle of the higher education and they're like, you know what? No one ever asked me if I wanted to work on people's teeth my whole life. You know, yes, it pays good, but there's more to life than getting paid. So they drop out, they do something different. Assess your personal strengths and weaknesses and play to your strengths. That's kind of a secular way of looking at your career. Be proactive, identify tomorrow's job opportunities, manage your own career, develop interpersonal skills, especially communication. No matter what career you go into, communication will help you. So the better communicator you are, the better the easier time you'll have in your career. So we sit in a big square and we look at each other and we talk to each other, and different people have to interact and stuff, because I want you to be very comfortable communicating with your peers. And sometimes we'll have a little debate or something, it hasn't come up a lot in here, where you could take either side of an issue. You need to be able to argue respectfully with your peers. Be active. These are just tips on how to be more employable. Work harder, not smarter. Work harder and smarter. No, not smarter. Stay up to date. Make learning a lifetime commitment. Keep networking. Increase your visibility and seek a mentor. We really are trying to apply this within the organizational leadership program. We want you to have these skills so that whatever it is that you're hyper employable, the Lord is going to direct where you're going to go, and we recognize his sovereignty in that. But you need to do your part to be what I would call hyper employable, where it's not hard at all for an employer to imagine you working for them. And for some, hoping you have multiple options. You have a lot of different things you could do. And so trying to make that a reality for you is one of my missions being here. Leverage your competitive advantage. Some of you have connections, or you're from a region where, you already know people, you already have a network. You should at least consider, maybe the Lord's going to direct you that way, because that's where you already have some lever, some advantage to be in there, right? So, but for some, it's not enough to make you necessarily go back there. Just because Kaylin's from Leonard Wood, Missouri, or whatever, St. Roberts, Missouri, doesn't mean that St. Roberts is in our future. It just depends on what God leads you to do. Just because your dad and grandpa started a church and school and run it doesn't mean that you have to go back and work there. On the other hand, if you were interested in being an educator, it would make sense that it should be at the top of your list, but it doesn't have to be either. It's just kind of one of those things you got to really determine what God's will is. But you should at least say, okay, is there anything that would be advantageous for me to consider and pray about? And then you just say, okay, is that what God's leading me to do or not? Don't be afraid to take risks when you're young, especially. You take a job year out of college and it doesn't work out. Big deal. You can get another job. Not taking risks, I think, is much more dangerous than taking risks, especially when you're young. Because is it really a risk when we look at God working in our lives? Is it really a risk to go work in Alaska for a year and then it doesn't work out? I mean, yes, it was a year of your life, but was it a waste? I mean, did you waste it? Or was it a learning experience? Did you grow? Was it a worthwhile thing? I've had very few things in my life that were total waste. Paper route in Kansas City, that was a waste. I wish I wouldn't have done that. That was a mistake. I lost money on that deal. The lessons I learned were all negative lessons, right? But even that, I look back, I'm like, well, I did learn one or two things, and it did turn into a couple good sermon illustrations. So I guess it wasn't a total waste. But most of the things you do in your 20s, especially, not gonna be wasted if you have the right attitude. It's okay to change jobs. So no one would have said that 30 years ago. So I just saw on LinkedIn, one of my friends, business associates, he's celebrating 18 years at the company that he helped start. I'm like, I've been 10 places in 18 years. It's hard to imagine being in one place for 18 years. I think I'd be bored. I think I would just have like restless leg syndrome after about 18 months. So let alone 18 years. But other people, especially previous generation, that was great security. They would not bounce around from place to place. And you think about some pastors that planted churches and they're still there after 20, 30, 40 years. Pretty amazing. I have a lot of respect for that. But in today's economy, in this world today, where you can get on a plane and you can be in Tokyo in 11 hours and you can, go and get a master's degree in a year and a half and you can do this and that. Changing jobs is not necessarily a bad thing. You shouldn't be always bouncing, shouldn't be like using everything as a stepping stone or a ladder to get to the next thing. But it's not a bad thing. It's not a sin to change your job. Be prepared and willing when opportunity knocks. Those are the things that, you're just kind of want to be agile enough in your career that if the Lord brings something along that you're not so stuck that you couldn't make a change if you needed to. And some of that has to do with how much debt you're in, and some of that has to do with, your obligations and relationships and things like that. But if the Lord brings opportunity along, at least being willing to consider it. So we'll wrap it up with that for today. We'll talk about this maybe a little bit more on Friday as well. So, yes. And this Friday is let me wrap it up with this. When was this due? Monday. Okay, yeah, because I thought we weren't having class on Friday, but we are. Okay, all right. So don't underestimate the power of this assignment right here. Make it good, make it fun, make it, impress me. I want to be impressed. So if you have any questions you can ask. Doesn't mean I'm gonna have a lot of answers, but okay. All right. See you guys on Friday. Well, I'll see you every day, but I'll see you on Friday in class. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you.
Where are we going